So the topic this morning is light within the shadows, unlearning the fear of darkness. And I thought, Mother's Day? Okay, well, we'll get there. We'll get there. But let's start out with the scary part. So how many of you like to watch horror movies? Nope, nope. Okay. How about superhero movies? Okay, yeah. How about Star Wars? Sci-fi? Okay, I got most hands on that one. You know, humans love stories about good and evil, right? And we have a tendency to fear the unknown and things that we don't understand. We label them as dark and ominous and even evil sometimes, right? And so as a teenager, I loved scary movies. At least not, I didn't like the really super scary ones like Charlie, whatever is that one in the slasher movies? No, no. But um, but I liked movies about haunted houses and murderers hiding in the shower, and shadows, the mystery part of it. Mystery part was the good part, right? Not too much blood. And then there was the blob that terrorized a whole town, came from space. And I think Steve McQueen was in that one, right? And those movies were a more intense step up from a memory that I had when I was much younger of lying just frozen under the covers in my bed. And there was this scary creature in my bedroom watching me as I was trying to sleep and shaking the whole night. And in the morning, when the sun came out, that creature was my robe draped over the chair. So a lot of times, a lot of these fears that we have are imagined, but we don't take the time to investigate. We don't take the courage and look that darkness into the face. You know, and as we grow up, we're taught to fear the darkness, right? So when we're children, we discover that there are some things that we like to do, and there's some parts of ourselves that we think they're great, but our parents, not so much, not acceptable. Or the teachers or other authority figures. These things are not, we fear that we're going to be rejected, or we're punished even. And so we suppress those parts of ourselves until they become our shadow, right? They're buried deep within the darkness, deep within our psyches. And we might try to define ourselves as existing only in the light. We excise all of those dark parts of ourselves, our shadow. We're disowning really part of ourself when we do that. But once that shadow self is always there. It hides beneath the surface. And when, like if we start applying some of the science of mind principles and we're making progress, life's changing, change your thinking, change your life. And then we hit this impasse. What's going on? Well, typically it's that shadow self that's there hiding. And so we need to bring it to the surface in order to face it and deal with it and own it, right? Because it might be a very good part of ourself that we've chosen to suppress. And even if it's a part of stuff that we don't like, that's still a part of us. You know, you need the darkness to define the light. It's a spectrum, as we talked last week. And so if we're going to have a wholehearted life and create the life that we desire, we need to learn to embrace our shadow self as well. Now, as we mature, there's another type of fear of the unknown, that often scares us the most, right? Our unknown world, with all of its joys and its challenges, whatever they are, is our comfort zone, and we've learned to navigate this. So going outside that comfort zone, pretty scary, going into that darkness. Venturing out into the unknown. We don't know where the path is going to take us. We don't know what to expect, how to respond, or what tools and assistance we're going to need to just survive in that unknown place. And yet, if we never venture out into the unknown, we cannot reach our full potential. We're going to live small instead of living big as we were intended to be, right? And so, but if we do choose to just stay in that comfort zone, we can just hope that life's going to stay the same and we'll be okay. And that is until the rest of the world changes and the people around us change, as they always do. That's a part of life, right? One thing we can always count on is change. I'm getting some feedback. Is this mic here or something? Okay. But eventually, whether we initiate the journey or find change thrust upon us, we find ourselves in the darkness of unknown territory. It's inevitable. So we want to learn to navigate the darkness in our fears. Now, there's another fear that can take us into the darkness, is a fear that something is too good to be true, right? And this can involve into fear of loss. It could be afraid of losing what we love the most. For example, it's like a relationship, that special someone that just showed up. Oh, this is too good to be true. It won't last, right? Or maybe it's our beautiful child. We're afraid that something's going to happen to them, and with all of the gun violence going on right now, I mean, that's a very real thing. Can I even let my child go to school or to the grocery store, right? It's mothers can become very clingy, and you have to, these kind of rules, and so, but when we have this fear, it sets us up to see all the challenges in the relationship and totally miss everything that's going right. Right? By denying ourselves, we lose out on the joy and the love in the relationship. We sabotage ourselves and our partner, our loved one. So we might find ourselves avoiding opportunities where the expectations are the key problem that we have to address in order to experience the love that we so keenly desire. Right? The problem isn't out there. The problem is within us and our expectation. Our vulnerabilities can overwhelm us and throw us into fear. Brene Brown, in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, says, until we learn to tolerate vulnerability and transform it into gratitude, intense feelings of love will often bring up the fear of loss. So how does all of this fear get us into some difficulties? Well, Lynn Twist, in her book, The Soul of Money, she addresses the myth of scarcity. She says, and I can really relate to the way that she describes scarcity. She says, what is our first thought when we wake up in the morning? I didn't get enough sleep. I'm tired, right? Or I don't have enough time to get everything done today that I want, right? We automatically get that belief of there's not enough going, whether it's true or not, rolling along without even questioning it. It just, it's that tape that's running and running. And I don't get enough exercise. I don't have enough work. I don't have enough people to get everything done. We don't have enough people in our community to fill the sanctuary on Sundays or fill our classes or get all these teams filled to do all the things done that we want to do. We don't have enough visibility in the community and the print media or online. We don't have enough time to get everything done. We don't have enough friends. We don't have enough, right? But don't stop there. Lynn Twist, she keeps multiplying the angst and the scarcity, and this is what she adds. We're not thin enough. We're not smart enough. We're not pretty enough or fit enough or educated or successful enough or rich enough, ever, no matter how much we have, ever. Before we even sit up in bed, before our feet touch the floor, we're already inadequate, already behind, already losing, already lacking something, right? And by the time we go to bed at night, our minds race with a litany of what we didn't get done, what we didn't get or that day, right? All the things that were wrong. We go to sleep burdened by all these thoughts, and we wake up at 3 a.m. to a reverie of lack. What begins as a simple expression of the hurried life or even the challenged life grows into great justification for an unfulfilled life. So how do we shift this pattern of fear? So let's look at how we can face our fears and explore the darkness and transform it using the science of mind principles. Now, society tries to brainwash us into accepting all of these fears, that they're true, and we should avoid the darkness or else experience these dire consequences. In reality, light and darkness work together. There isn't one without the other. It's like the yin and the yang. They move back and forth, one into the other, in a cycle, right? Brene Brown again, she says, the dark does not destroy the light, it defines it. It's our fear of the dark that casts our joy into the shadows. It's our fear of the dark. It's not the darkness, it's our fear, right? And she continues, only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. It's that divine light within us that's expressing as us, right? So, what if we partnered with the dark instead of fearing it, labeling it, or trying to control it? What if we beheld the unknown with wonderment and curiosity instead of fear? To unlearn the fear of darkness, whether it is fear of unknown people and situations, fear of loss, or fear of scarcity, we can learn to recognize that there is no place where God is not. The world is all God, and it is all good. And see, each and every person is an expression of that one divine life. The divine intention is for us to evolve together to a greater experience of love, peace, joy, and light. Ernest Holmes, in his book, This Thing Called You, says, no harm can come to you when you know that God is at the center of everything. This knowledge will protect you from all evil. Evil is as night before the onrushing light of your consciousness. It is as darkness dissipated by the sun of your faith. It is as fire extinguished by the waters of your spirit. When you turn that light switch on, the darkness is gone, right? And what was ever underneath is revealed. So another key spiritual principle is that our thoughts create our reality. So in other words, whatever we focus on manifests, whether it's positive or negative. We get to choose what we're focusing on, and therefore we get to choose what's manifesting in our life. Another great adage is, what we resist persists, right? And so no wonder it's so hard to fight the darkness. When we're out there fighting it, then we give it strength. So to truly change our life experiences, we must change our thoughts and explore our fears, not suppress or fight them, right? An important spiritual practice, very useful, is gratitude. Now, scarcity is a lack of gratitude for all the good things we have in our life. Rather than starting and ending our days with the fear of loss and scarcity, as Lynn Twist was talking about, we can keep a gratitude journal and write down 5 things that we're grateful for right before we go to sleep. And then we'll contemplate that all night. And we're focusing on that, and it will grow. And we'll notice when we wake up in the morning, we've got even more things to be grateful for, starting with waking up and seeing the sun. How good is that, to be alive and have this beautiful, wonderful day to look forward to? Another shift is choosing a mindset of sufficiency rather than scarcity. It's like when we get caught up in wanting to have abundance and be rich and all those kinds of things, and that's really in the material world. What it's really about is sufficiency. It doesn't mean just having barely enough to get by, and it doesn't mean having so many things that we're spending all our time taking care of our stuff instead of enjoying our relationships, right? But it means that there's always enough. And we are enough. We were created as enough, just as we are. We don't need to strive for perfection, and we don't need to demean what we're doing. We are sufficient for the divine. Divine created us as a whole package, right? And so think of that. We are enough. Joseph Mazzella has a great blog article on gratitude and sufficiency. And I'm going to shorten the story a little bit, but he writes about a cold and rainy day. He was driving behind a tractor trailer that was just throwing up huge waves of water onto his windshield wiper, and he had his windshield wipers, going madly. And his bank account was also having a cold and rainy day, really a cold and rainy couple of years, because he had just transferred savings to replace his clothes dryer that had died a couple days before. And it joined all the other things that had died and were wearing out, needing replacements in the last 2 years. He always had just enough to keep going, but he did have enough. But as he drove along, he wasn't crying or pouting or worrying. Nope. Instead, he found himself smiling into the grayness and singing along with one of his favorite songs on the radio and thanking God for his family, for his life, and all the blessings in it. He was looking into his latest problem, into the darkness, and reminding himself that his real riches weren't in his bank account, but in his heart and soul. It doesn't matter what life gives you. What matters is what you give to life. Right? Life gives us all sunshine and rain. Life gives us joy and pain. It's up to us to soak up the sun and let the rain wash away our tears. It is up to us to use this life to let our love grow deeper, our hearts grow kinder, and our souls grow stronger. The Cherokee have a saying, "The pain you feel today is the strength you feel tomorrow." For every challenge encountered, there is an opportunity for growth. And now pulling all this into Mother's Day. So the Divine Mother principle embodies fertility and creativity in the darkness of the womb, in the darkness, in the caring that they give for the child, as was in the reading this morning. When a child is first born, they're loved by their mother and cared for. And when once we've learned from the darkness, birth moves us from the darkness into the light when we're ready. So this Mother's Day, let's honor how mothers prepare their children to face their fears with love, courage, and trust in the infinite invisible. L.R. Nost is an award-winning author, feminist, and children's rights advocate. She's written, "It's not our job to toughen our children up to face a cruel and heartless world. It's our job to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and heartless." Thank you, moms. All right. There's a story, begins once upon a time, about two twins that were conceived in the same womb. And weeks passed, the twins developed. And as their awareness grew, they laughed for joy. "Isn't it great that we were conceived? Isn't it great to be alive?" Right? They were here with their twin, so loving to be together. And as they grew, they found their mother's cord that gave them life. They sang for joy. How great our mother's love is, that she shares her own life with us. Right? And as the weeks stretched into months, the twins noticed how much each one was changing. "What does it mean?" asked the one. Well, when they heard their mother's heartbeat, they felt calm and peaceful. And yet they kept changing, coming back to that heartbeat, steadying them. Well, the second one, "What does it mean?" said, "Well, it means that our stay in the world is drawing to an end." The first one said, "But I don't want to go. I want to stay here always." The second one says, "We have no choice." The first says, "Well, maybe there's life after birth." The second responded, "But how can there be? We will shed our life cord, and how is life possible without it? Besides, we have evidence that others were here before us, and none of them have returned to tell us that there is life after birth. Nope, this is the end." And so the second fell into deep despair, saying, "Conception ends in birth. What is the purpose of life in the womb? It's meaningless. Maybe there is no mother after all." The first said, "Oh no, there has to be," in protest. "How else did we get here? how do we remain alive? The second argued back, well, have you ever seen our mother? Maybe she only lives in our minds. Maybe we made her up because the idea made us feel good. And so the last days in the womb were filled with fear and questioning. And so finally, the moment of birth arrived. And when the twins passed from their world, they opened their eyes and they cried, for what they saw exceeded their fondest dreams. You see, when the twins were in their mother's womb, they were in that fertile time of creativity and development. They could see what was happening inside the womb, how they were changing, but they couldn't understand the context of their relationship to their mother as their provider and protector beyond the present moment. They observed the changes in themselves, but only as they occurred. They didn't know what was coming next. They didn't know what to expect once they left the womb or went out into the world after they were born. Was there even life, right? Going into that outside of our comfort zone. Really scary. But it's just like us as we evolve. We feel vulnerable because we don't always know what is happening or what to expect next. But if we allow ourselves to feel comfortable in the uncertainty and the vulnerability of not knowing, if we learn to feel comfortable looking into the darkness rather than fearing it and letting that spirit of life within us support us, we will discover that the darkness is the perfect place for us to be and grow. We can learn to say, I'm feeling vulnerable and fearful here in the darkness, but that's okay. I'm so grateful for my life and this moment of love and joy. Life is good. Let's take this to prayer. And so, on this Mother's Day, as we go within, we discover that beautiful love of the Divine Mother, that is that part of the divine that is expressed in so many wonderful ways, and in and through each and every person. It is that divine feminine within us, and it is that Divine Mother as our mother, that either that we were born with or that we have chosen or that show up at just the right time to be there for us, to listen, to support us, to know that we are God's beloved creation. And so we allow that love to enfold us, to support us, to let us know that it is safe to be us, to grow, to go beyond what we have known. And so at first we venture out holding the hand of our mother, exploring the world. And then we venture a little farther, always able to come back and get a hug and reassurance. But eventually we go off on our own because we have within us that Divine Mother, the Divine Father that is supporting us, that is that divine spirit within us, that is expressing itself in us, through us, and as all creation, everything around us is that divine. And so, as we venture into the darkness, we discover things that we had thought had to be hidden away, but they turn out to be one of our most cherished parts of ourself. And we find things that we thought were really important, that were part of the mask that we shared with the world, that not so important. And we can let them go. And we find our authentic self that is uniquely us. And with each step into the unknown, with each moment that we stay in the present, everywhere it is part of that unfoldment of our authentic self into our greatest yet to be. And so I am so grateful to see and know this truth for each person that is here in the sanctuary, listening to my voice on Zoom or in the recordings, and each person that is affected by the ripples from this center of spirit awareness that ripples out into our community and ripples out into the world and transforms and smooths and heals and loves each and every person as we are all lifted up together to a greater, more loving, caring, peaceful, and joyful life experience together. Life is good. And I release these words to the law, knowing that it is created as we are seeing it now and even greater. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. And so it is. And so we let it be.